he got absolutely fast rolled. Oh, you wanted me to go back and do stuff. Sorry, I didn't see that ages ago. Yeah, sols. Um, yeah. Basically, what happened was um, their team's jungler got shut down. The opponents at least did a really good job of controlling their jungle. Firstly, they gave away first blood, which was a mistake. It was a really aggressive ward that was kind of unnecessary. Um, then basically Elise just bullied the Eve jungle, which makes a lot of sense. Elise can beat Eve, and she may as well, because she's got so much escape in the jungle thanks to her repel. And she used that basically just to stomp on Eve, and it got to the point where the supports were level 6, level 7, and Evelyn still hadn't hit level 6 because she had been so jumped on, because the vision they had in their entire jungle was meant that whenever she was at a buff she was getting jumped on, and that was basically the story of the game. Plus Rad was slightly over aggressive in the top lane, which is fine. Um, but it meant that obviously they were against the Graves and Zyra, and you've got so much damage in that lane, it's very difficult. They swap lanes, which was actually good because the best chance they had of winning, like the most person who wanted to get fed was their Vayne, and to an extent the Vayne did get the most fed on their team, but they just didn't have enough defense for the like Eve was maybe not a wise idea because Eve really wins in the laning phase, but they had Vayne, they had Anivia, they wanted a hyper carry, they wanted to get to late game, and they had nobody in the jungle who could really effectively defend. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. It's definitely like the best way to go, Bennett. I think. Um, cool. So Rad's going to be team practicing, which makes sense. I will do some analysis right now, just because basically um, Rad's going to be um, team practicing, so it makes sense for us to. They're going to rewatch this basically, so we want to give them a bit of analysis. So if you've got any ideas, anybody, obviously I know you are watching Mert, feel free to say them so they're recorded and these guys can watch it later. Yeah, no probs. Um, cool. That's fine. You go, Jack. You kick ass. Enjoy your Touched by Diamond experience. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what they needed. They were a little over aggressive early game. I felt like they went in a couple of times where they didn't have vision. They need to pick that up. They needed a bit more pressure, really. Well, they needed a bit more vision in their own jungle. As soon as somebody gets ganked in your jungle, you have to think they have vision in our jungle, and then you need to start planning around that, getting some vision in your own jungle, so it doesn't become a continuous thing. Otherwise, the aggression will just continue and continue and continue, and that's exactly what happened. Did you guys get backmarked?
Yep.
Okay, I was just saying that basically, Rad's team is going to be checking back on this video, so that we're now doing the stream. So we should do some analysis. If you've got any ideas as to how they could have improved on last game or both games, where they went
Okay.
wrong, and What do you think? I was
Mm.
trying to say some things. So, what was the other thing? Yeah, another thing I had problems with was yeah. Well, I already said this. The comp was a little messed up because they had late game carries and early game pressure from Shen's okay. He's kind of um, okay. They had a couple of problems. Shen is this really split pushy champ. You need him to be split pushing all the time. Part of it was that they were always grouped, but they never like exploited the split push. If the entire team had been bot, if Rad had his ulti or teleport, he should have been top. You know. Um, at least that way they would have had a chance of pushing some lanes out and getting some parity. Um, doot 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 doot.
As I said, I think Evelyn was a really strange pick
Yeah, like
because
yeah,
they knew they were facing a stronger
yeah,
team, and this kind of
yeah,
high halo teams
yeah,
know how to deal with the um, the Evelyn
yeah,
kind of play. So
yeah. They did. They really shut it down
they needed
effectively.
some hard CC
Yeah,
instead
I
of
agree.
some.
Well, what I was saying earlier was they have two really late game carries in Anivia and Vayne. It's really weird to then bring a really mid game jungler like Evelyn when they should have brought some hard crowd control to
Yeah.
the party. It's really odd. I don't know if they knew the comp they were going to into the game. I feel like they made it up as they were going through camp select because I'm pretty sure Eve was an early pick. Don't quote me on that, but it seems like that would probably be the case. Which is fine, but with Anivia and Vayne, obviously the picks have worked really well in the first game. They kind of needed to build their team around like that, like they did a bit more effectively. Obviously, Kjaven gives you so much more in terms of crowd control and
Yeah.
an ability to just control the game. You know for a fact that Kjaven would have been a much harder proposition to dive because he has a much more effective escape strategy as much as anything else. Like they did all the time in the jungle where they were just constantly 1v1ing him with Elise. But that is the danger of Elise, and that's what you got to keep in mind. Like I say, we don't know the actual order of the picks and bans, so in terms of everything we say about picks and bans, to an extent it's all kind of theoretical, because we can't say that we were there in the same kind of thought process as the camps popped up. But I would predict that there was probably certainly an early Evelyn, in which case the team had to be built around that instead of being all doohickey. Because another thing from the first game is that like the carry has an absolutely godly late game. We saw this like in the first game. Like he wasn't that good in the early game. Well, I don't mean not that good, but he didn't have a massive advantage in the early game. However, in the late game, he was really dominating. So I feel like, from what I saw, like their better strat is to play a more passive defensive game, based around making sure the carries survive and then get fed late game. Obviously, you want to be getting kills in the mid game and the early game. You want to be trying to do that, but it's probably more important that the jungler concentrates on counter ganking than actually aggressively ganking. So the carries can kind of get to late game because that seems to be the type of camps that the carries preferred, and that's cool. I really like it, but that means that they have to be the camps that the entire team is built around.
Yeah.
Doot, doot, doot. Trying to think anything else up. Late game, there was no vision at all. They needed vision in their own jungle. Whenever you were walking, like I don't know if Vayne bought some wards, but Vayne probably should have bought some wards because Vayne was the only one who was really getting out of the base and was safe. She probably should have managed to put some wards, say, up in blue buff. just to give an idea of what you can do, because at that point the only hope you really have of winning the game is catching people out and then team fighting. But there was no chance of catching anybody out because there was never any vision up. That's like a really important thing when you're behind. And I know it's really risky because if you go toward, you're very likely to walk into, you know, danger. But at the same time, if you can see other people on the map, that's when you've got to say, okay, right now I have to ward here. And it has to be a split second. That's the kind of split second stuff I probably couldn't do. But the point is, that definitely has to be the mentality once you're behind, because, you know, I think you probably all realise that your chance to win at that point was probably 0-0. You just needed to do something, and something was probably catching 3 kills how and where you could. Doot. When you're playing a camp, I don't know, this one's a bit tough because I think the situation of the game kind of forced it to be this way. You had like way more farm than the Elise Evelyn, which was probably caused by the fact that you were so underleveled. You kind of had to farm, you know. I guess, okay, I know what I'll say, because that's actually irrelevant now I think about it. But the thing that is relevant is that something that you did really well, and something you should always do in this situation, was when you had got behind and you were really low level, you went straight to top and you started sucking up some of the farm from Shen, which is good because it's at that point it's more valuable than you, on you. And yeah, that's probably the best way to go when you're behind in jungle. Just suck up the solo lane, especially if it's a duo lane, because then you're kind of needed there anyway. It'll stop the turret from going down so quickly, especially when the carrier's got a little bit fed like he had. So that was a good call. What wasn't a good call was then going in afterwards, because they have such a lead with on you under tower, but that wasn't you. That was just a combination, I imagine. But that's cool. You didn't really need the kills, and I don't know, it was just really dangerous. Doot. There was something else. Yeah, that's it. I thought Eve's item choice was a little bit odd. I feel like because once you were behind, getting Elder Lizard wasn't the way to go. Getting the tankiness probably was the way to go, because you can't walk up to people and auto-attack them after, you know, auto-attacks them, be queuing them, whatever. You can't do that once you've kind of been as pounced on as much as you were. Really shut down. So the tanky jungle item would have been better pick because it would have allowed you to survive for a bit longer, which would have given you more sustained damage, which probably was going to be doing more than the Elder Lizard. It would also allow you to get a bit more kiting and positioning opportunities for you to get off good ults, which I suppose at that point was your best chance of having an impact in the team fights. I can't think of that much more to be her, but I guess if I ever think about it and maybe go rewatch the games, as I'm sure you will be, you'll think of more as would I. But yeah, I think for now we'll say that's a wrap for this stream, and well, I might stream some more since it's already up. It's a lot of work, but whatevs. I will invite you to the call quickly.
Yeah.
Hey, yo.
So,
Was it good, my commentating?
yeah, it was good.